How did a search for spices lead Europeans to dominate the world and still hold power today? In this video, we dig into how Europe conquered Africa. Not by accident, but by design. Europe was chasing goods from India because their survival depended on it. Spices were used for food and medicine, silk showed status, and gold built empires. Without them, Europe had no power. But once they saw Africa's riches, a mission of trade turned into a mission to control the land and the people. From sea routes to steamships, trade to treaties, and weapons to governments. You'll see how the hunt for India turned into global domination, and how Africa became ground zero for Europe's rise. What was Europe looking for? Long before Europe took over Africa, they were stuck. The goods they wanted came from the East. They wanted to trade directly with India. But Europe had a problem. Muslim empires controlled the land paths to Asia. To get to India by land, traders had to pass through Turkey, Syria, Iraq, and Iran. The Ottomans made them pay heavy taxes, and the Safavids controlled what came in and out. It was a long, risky journey that drained time and wealth. Europe needed a new route, and Portugal made the first move. In the 1400s, Prince Henry of Portugal sent ships south along Africa's west coast. He wanted a sea route around the continent, not into it. They were not trying to conquer Africa, they were trying to get past it. By the late 1400s, Portuguese ships reached the southern tip of Africa. Then Vasco da Gama made it to India in 1498. That changed the game. Spain followed. Then the Dutch, the British, and the French joined in. But as they moved along Africa's coast, they saw something else. Africa was not poor. It was not primitive. The fake news they teach. It was rich, alive, and organized. That changed the game for Europe. What did they find in Africa? Africa was not just a shortcut. It was a prize. When European ships stopped along the coast, they found kingdoms with wealth, structure, and trade. West Africa had gold. The Mali Empire, and later the Songhai Empire, were known across the world. The Kingdom of Benin had skilled artists, strong rulers, and a highly structured government. In Central Africa, the Congo Kingdom had organized towns, farming, and trade systems. Along the East Coast, cities like Kilwa and Mombasa were busy trade centers in the Indian Ocean world. They connected Africa to Arabia, India, and China. Europeans came for spices, but Africa offered more than they expected. Gold, ivory, copper, and land. And the people they met were not helpless or uncivilized. They were skilled negotiators, traders, and rulers. At first, trade was peaceful. Goods were exchanged. Agreements were made. But as Europe's hunger grew, so did its plans. Africa was no longer a place to pass, it became a place to control. How did trade become control? Trade started at the coast. Europeans built forts to protect their goods. The Portuguese built Elmina Castle in 1482. It was meant for gold. But over time, It became a hub for capturing and exporting African people. As more ships came, trade shifted. Europeans offered weapons, cloth, and metal in exchange for captives. African leaders traded prisoners from rival groups. This deepened tensions, and wars became profitable. The more Europe gained, the less they needed to play fair. They made deals that tricked local rulers. Treaties were signed, often without clear understanding. Once signed, they were used as proof of European ownership. Some African leaders welcomed the trade, others resisted. Either way, Europe used both cooperation and conflict to tighten its grip. They put one group against another. They sold weapons to both sides. Not only that, but they created problems, then offered to solve them. This was the beginning of divide and conquer. Europe was no longer just trading. They were positioning themselves for control. What tools did Europe use to take over? By the 1800s, Europe had new tools. The Industrial Revolution gave them machines, weapons, and speed. The Maxim was the first automatic machine weapon. It gave small armies the power to wipe out thousands. African warriors had bravery and skill, but they faced firepower they could not match. But weapons weren't the only advantage. Europe also gained a way to survive Africa's diseases. Quinine changed everything. Before quinine, malaria killed Europeans who tried to explore inland. With quinine, they survived. Now they could reach deep into Africa and stay there. Steamships could sail upriver. Rivers that once protected kingdoms now brought soldiers and supplies straight to the center. Railroads were built not to connect Africans, but to move what was taken from farms and the earth to the sea. Europe needed control over information too. That's where the telegraph came in. It made it easy to send orders across long distances. Leaders in London or Paris could command armies and manage colonies with just one message. Africa had fought outsiders before. But this time the outsiders had machines, maps, and a mission. Europe's takeover of Africa wasn't just about war or conquest. It was paperwork, backed by force, signed in Europe, suffered in Africa. That was just the beginning. But here's the question. How did the Berlin Conference shape Africa's future? Find out in our next video. Hit that notification bell so you'll know the moment it drops. You don't want to miss it. That's a wrap, history seekers. Getting to the roots is where history comes alive. We uncover the truth about Africa, African Americans, and American history, one story at a time. Thanks for watching. Peace and love.